Internet freedom is under attack around the world. And here's why we need to fund initiatives to protect it. I'm Nick Espinoza, your chief security fanatic, and let's dive in. Now, Aisha Down of The Guardian had a really interesting write-up about what's going on, because if you didn't know, for nearly 2 decades, the United States has quietly funded a global effort to keep the internet from splintering into essentially little fiefdoms run by authoritarian governments. And as of now, that money is seriously threatened, and a large part of it is already gone. This directly puts the internet freedom basically in jeopardy, and it puts it in jeopardy around the world. Now, this is managed by the U.S. State Department and also the U.S. Agency for Global Media. This program, broadly called simply Internet Freedom, funds small groups all over the world, from Iran to China to the Philippines. People and small organizations basically have built grassroots technologies to evade internet controls imposed by their respective governments. This US-based program essentially has dispensed well over $500 million US in the past decade, according to analysis by The Guardian, with 2024 included, which was $94 million throughout that year. Now, career employees who staffed Internet Freedom resigned or were fired in 2025 as part of the larger reductions thanks to DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency. If you recall, when the Trump presidency started, Elon Musk, running the Department of Government Efficiency, technically, I guess, basically went through and began just terminating or getting rid of a lot of the government infrastructure. So many of its programs were cut permanently. Its main granting office issued no money in 2025. The Open Technology Fund, or OTF, which is a nonprofit that works with the government to direct roughly half of this money, won a lawsuit to get some of this funding restored back in December of last year. The Trump administration is now appealing that ruling. On top of that, the Trump administration this January also withdrew from the Freedom Online Coalition. This is a global alliance set up by the United States to defend digital rights. So that's essentially what is happening here, but let's think about the critical and long-term ramifications that are essentially here if we do not fund initiatives to keep the internet free around the world. I mean, first things first, this weakens essentially the tools that do keep the internet free, right? The funding cuts have effectively gutted U.S. support for projects that develop and maintain censorship, circumvention, and privacy tools. Think Signal, Tor, all of these. A lot of them are susceptible to or eligible for grants, or at least have been, to ensure that we have privacy. I use Signal quite a bit. I also use the Tor browser and all of these things. They keep me more anonymous and private. And think about if we were living in an authoritarian regime, what that would mean, right? Shielding you essentially from that authoritarian government. So this undermines the technology that lets people around the world access uncensored information and communicate securely. On top of this, this actually does empower authoritarian control of aspects of the internet. Without sustained support, authoritarian governments can more easily expand things like digital censorship or surveillance, or basically create a digital iron curtain. You know, if you're familiar with that term, this essentially fragments the internet into essentially closed networks that are controlled by states rather than a global commons standard. Now, Russia has experimented with this just in the lead up to the Ukraine war, where they decided to essentially shut the entire Russian infrastructure off from the rest of the internet for 24 hours to see how they would be able to work and sustain it. They have their own internal messaging apps and communication apps and social media apps and all of that. So they are already experimenting with this, as are other authoritarian governments. So this is a huge, huge problem. And on top of this, this also undercuts civil society and grassroots innovation. Many small digital rights groups and technologists rely on this type of support to build and maintain tools that counter repression around the world. Losing funding halts innovation, but it also diminishes the global capacity to resist censorship, something that, quite frankly, is a very serious problem in this day and age. But this also erodes U.S. leadership in digital rights. For decades, the United States' funding has essentially signaled a commitment to an open, interoperable internet, right? Cutting the support literally cedes influence to other nations like China and Russia and all of them. And both of those countries are, for the record, promoting alternative restrictive models of the web. Look at China's Great Firewall. Understand that essentially if you're popping off against the government in China, they can see it. They can censor you. You have social credit scores. This is what Chinese internet looks like. It's a surveillance state first, a platform for you to communicate second. It's a huge, huge problem. This also, for the record, damages global trust in partnerships literally around the world. With the U.S. withdrawing from international alliances like the Freedom Online Coalition, global collaboration to defend the internet simply weakens. It's that plain and simple. This is a huge, huge problem. The United States has been a driving force for literally decades. This makes coordinated responses to censorship around the world much harder as well. This can also create an information vacuum, if you really think about it, right? I mean, think about it in the context of a crisis such as an anti-government uprising. We just saw one in Iran recently, right? The technologies that have helped citizens share real-time information, is essentially at jeopardy. These cuts reduce resilience to disinformation, but they also basically cut control during critical moments as well. You could see the Iranians essentially cut their own internet, or the government did, against its citizens. This is essentially what we are talking about, resisting that, getting around that, using technologies that help to circumvent government control, especially if you are coordinating actions as a dissident against authoritarian government, is incredibly important. This helps the authoritarians. And finally, this really does threaten long-term internet resilience in general. I mean, a truly global, healthy internet depends on open access. It depends on free flow of information. It has to have resistance to fragmentation. Understanding what the actual internet is, funding reductions make splintering into controlled, state-centric internet more likely over time. I mean, that's really what it is. And look, cutting funding for global internet freedoms initiatives does not merely weaken dissidents abroad. It accelerates internet fragmentation. It empowers authoritarians, their digital governance models. It undermines long-term resilience and the openness and the trust that the global internet depends on to function as a shared, interoperable system that we have utilized throughout the world. Without this funding, the internet may cease to be what we've known the internet to be, good or bad. And Lord knows I have problems with the free and open social media platforms of the world, given what they've wrought on us. But I want a free and open internet because, quite frankly, the other upsides are the collaboration, the research efforts, and everything else, the information sharing, accuracy. These are things that are beyond important. So we should be funding this, and quite frankly, I don't think we will anytime soon, and I think that sucks for everybody. And please like, share, follow me here on Facebook and Twitter at NickAESP for as long as you can. Same with YouTube as well. And as always, stay safe, stay online, and please, 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 and to stay private, informed, and secure. Take care.